The album is called Reunions, and in this time of quarantine, isn't that what we're all longing for? For now, can music fill the void? My review of the latest release from Americana singer-songwriter Jason Isbell is coming up next on Track by Track. Hey everybody, my name's Kyle, and this is Track by Track, music reviews, news, and commentary. Thanks for tuning in today, and if this is your first time here, please take a second to click subscribe so that you won't miss future reviews and more. I think it's time that I accepted the truth. Jason Isbell is becoming one of my favorite artists. You see, his last few albums have been a bit of a stealth affair for me. 2013's Southeastern and 2015's Something More Than Free were both albums that I enjoyed a lot, but I didn't catch on to them until they'd already been out for a year or more. Then with 2017's The Nashville Sound, for whatever neglectful reason, I didn't pick it up when it first came out, and yet it still ended up on my best of the year list. Based on how much I liked his prior releases, I should have known better. I won't make that mistake again. In fact, with Reunions, I'd like to think that I'm even a little ahead of the game. The 2020 release from Jason Isbell and the 400 unit was released a week early at independent record stores, which was a pretty cool move, especially when small businesses like that need all the help they can get right now. So here I am, a week before the announced street date, new Jason Isbell in hand. Now I have to say, Reunions is not quite the album that I was expecting. That's probably a good thing, if I'm being honest. The first single from the record was the blistering and semi-political rocker Be Afraid. It's a track that hit me hard the first time I heard it, but seemed to lose its edge upon repeat listens. I still like the song, but it isn't one that I want to crank up as much anymore when it comes on. And I started to wonder if this would be indicative of what the rest of the album would sound like. In short, it's not. Be Afraid is easily the hardest rocking song on Reunions, which is otherwise a much more easygoing and introspective collection of songs. I mean, you can't get much more introspective than the title of the opening track. What Have I Done to Help is one of several Springsteen-esque tracks on the new album that paint a lush and small-town cinematic portrait of the main character of the song. I find it an odd choice for an opening number, if only because it doesn't feel like the beginning of anything. Still, it's a strong song with some great quality guitar work near the end, but it does seem to drag on a little aimlessly during the final minute and a half before finally reaching a curious but satisfying climax. The vivid musical depictions of small-town America continue on the next two tracks, but with starkly different stories. Dreamsicle is a perfect song for a lazy summer evening spent reminiscing about a time when we were young and innocent. Then on Only Children, we get a story of an innocence lost with the untimely death of a friend and the grief of a mother losing her only child. Both songs are powerful in their own ways, and I found myself particularly thinking about Only Children and its layers of meaning. I was not an only child, but was I just as over-encouraged as the lyric says, as a firstborn? And what about my only child? Now 17, they could be as old as the subject of Isbell's song, or not far from it. And it gave me pause. At track 4, we get the song that I personally would have opened the album with, and that's Overseas. To be honest, it isn't one of my favorite tracks on Reunions, but musically it feels better to me in that position. The whole song has a strong Tom Petty vibe to it, and it features one of the best guitar solos on the album, which makes up for the somewhat lackluster chorus. Isbell channels Petty once again on Running With Our Eyes Closed, a song that feels very early 80s to me. I get a bit of that Tom Petty, Bryan Adams, John Cougar vibe from the beginning of that decade before the dawn of MTV. I like this song a lot. It's a surprising album highlight for me, perhaps due in no small part to the more contemporary singer-songwriter it also strongly reminds me of, and that's Ryan Adams. I could have easily heard this song on one of Adams' recent albums, just as I could have easily heard one of Adams' songs on a Jason Isbell album. In many ways, these guys are cut from the same cloth. Next up on River, we get what is arguably the most folksy, or Americana song on the album. It's a gentle spiritual ode, but with deceptively dark lyrics. We've heard the river used as a metaphor before. The idea of it washing away our sins is an oft-used musical cliche. But Isbell's character here sounds as if he harbors some truly dark secrets. And as much as he respects that river, he fears the lake of fire. It's a sly take on a familiar trope. I see you, Jason. I see what you did there. We've talked about Be Afraid already, which comes up next at track 7. I don't have much more to add other than to say that I do actually like its placement here in the song cycle. It's a nice burst of energy at this point in the album. But it's back to business on St. Peter's Autograph, a tender James Taylor-esque ballad that almost feels as if it could be part of a trilogy with Dreamsicle and Only Children earlier on the album. There seems to be a tendency to put weaker songs near the end of an album, but Reunions upends that practice with a pair of truly remarkable tracks that will speak to different people in very different ways. It Gets Easier could well be the new anthem for Alcoholics Anonymous. Rarely have I heard a songwriter channel their struggle into lyrics with as much painful honesty as Jason Isbell does here. And while thankfully I can't relate on such a personal level, the feelings described are so visceral that it still hits like a punch in the gut. Funnily enough, the album ends with a very different kind of punch in the gut. Letting You Go is destined to soundtrack countless father-daughter dances at weddings over the next few years. As the father of a 5-year-old daughter, Isbell sings from an honest perspective, and one that pretty much any parent can appreciate. But the notion of seeing your daughter fall in love, leave home, and get married, of having to let her go, that's the gut punch right there. To be honest, that's been the subject of many songs that we've all heard before, but I appreciate how Isbell's take on a familiar subject isn't quite as saccharine, sentimental though it may be. So I have to say, Reunions feels like exactly the kind of album I needed to hear right now. We're all going through some tough times right now, and as cathartic as a song like Be Afraid might feel, I really only needed to feel that for a moment. That's what Jason Isbell delivers here. Just that quick burst of rage to let us get it out of our system without dwelling on it or letting it fester. Thankfully, the album explores so many more emotions than that. And even when we're taken to the depths of sorrow and despair, we're not abandoned there. Hope is always no more than a track away. And although I wouldn't necessarily call it a feel-good album, it isn't inherently that, I do feel better every time I listen to it. And that's kind of what music is supposed to do, right? So I'm giving Reunions by Jason Isbell and the 400 Unit an X rating of 7 out of 10. It's the right album at the right time, and at local record shops, it's even ahead of time. If you're looking for a reason to get out of the house, this could be it. Once again, my name's Kyle, and this has been Track by Track. If you like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up, plus check out some of these other videos below that I think you might also enjoy. And of course, be sure to click subscribe, because true music fans always want new releases the day they come out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.